Good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me? So, my name is Yentel Love. I'm on the web service team in CPS. So, before we begin with the presentation, I just want to give you a little quick info about why we decided to do this webinar. This webinar is a beginner's guide for Weebly, and we decided to do it on Weebly because ITS has recently signed a contract with Weebly, which allows all the schools to get a pro site at no cost. So your school does not have to pay anything for these websites. So, and then I'll go through a little bit after the presentation to kind of show you how you can actually get onto this new platform and get you off of your old website if you would like to take this opportunity. So I want to introduce Justin. He is the Weebly expert, and he'll actually go through the presentation for you. You're up, Justin.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today. As Yentel said, my name is Justin. I work for Weebly in our Scottsdale office. I work on our training and communication team. I do a lot of internal stuff, but I also get to deliver these webinars to our customers, and today a special one for you folks. And it's always the best part of my week. What we're going to be going through is really the basics to use our software. The software is purposed to be very easy for anybody to use, whether you're very tech savvy or never done anything online before. It's a drag and drop editor, and I'll show you what that means right now. So what we're looking at here is a site that we have created. It's the same type of thing that you will see when your site is first created for you. There will be a site title, which we could change, and then you'll see some tabs that show up here and a bunch of space down below where we can start building our website. So a drag and drop builder is where we have elements on the left-hand side. So for title, text, and image, and to get a title or text in the page itself, we just simply drag and drop these elements onto the page. So I've dragged the title element on. I can click here to edit, and I can type in whatever I'd like the title to be. I can drag in a text element, bring images onto the page. From here, I can go ahead and upload an image by dragging it into this area and uploading it from my computer. And you can also do things like resize the image, make it larger or smaller. And that is the basics of drag and drop. We're going to come back and spend much more time looking at these elements and how to structure your site. But the first thing that I want to do is go over all of the options that you're going to be seeing here in your site. So this first tab is the Build tab, and that's where we started. That's where you're going to spend the majority of your time on Weebly. That's where you are going to find all of these elements so you can start building your website. The second tab is the Pages tab. If we look at this list on the left-hand side, we see that it matches with what we see up here at the top. So we can create pages using this plus button. The majority of pages that you are going to create are these standard pages. So I can click this, create a new standard page, call it whatever I want, and click on Done. And we see that our new page was now added to this list. If I wanted to reorganize these, I could go ahead, click and hold, and drag this page to wherever I want on the list, and we can see that it updates here on the main section. As far as a shop page, if I don't have anything that I want to sell, I don't want to use this page, I could simply rename it to be something else, or I could just delete this page altogether. So just because the site came with some pre-built pages with names does not mean you have to use those pages or use those names. You have 100% ability to adjust this however you would like. We'll be going over a little bit more with the Pages tab, but we're going to move on to the Theme tab. In the theme tab, the first thing we see is a couple of color options. I can switch between these to see if I like one color style better. We saw just a little change on this theme. Some of the highlights will change depending on the color. But I can also change my entire theme together. And if you're wondering, well, what is a theme? We can see what that is now. So Weebly has predefined themes that you can use for your site. The themes have a different organization, so like the title is in a different place, or the navigation items are in a different place. In this, we see they're in the top right. In this one, they're kind of in the middle. And you can get an idea of kind of the base structure of each of these themes, and then go ahead and build off of it. So we can take a look at all of these different tabs, find something that we really like the look of, and move forward. So this one's nice and simple. We've got the title in the top left, the navigation in the top right. I think this will be a good place to start. I can preview the theme by clicking on preview. And so this won't make any changes. It'll just kind of show me what my site would look like if I chose this theme. If I don't like it, I can cancel. I can go take a look at a different theme, preview it. And if I like it, I can go ahead and click on choose. So I happen to choose the same one that I had before. We can see what theme we're currently on by going to theme, change theme, and go to recently used. So if I were to change my theme, let's say to this dusk theme, and then wanted to know what I was on before, I'd go back to theme, change theme, recently used, and I'd see that my previous theme was this one, and the one I'm currently using is this one here. We can see that this theme has some different options when it comes to colors. So you'll notice a lot of kind of very unique characteristics to each of these. The best thing that you can do is just spend a little bit of time, play around, choose the one you like, and you can change it at any time. You're never going to be stuck with a choice. Also in the theme tab is the ability to change your fonts. So by default, there are going to be font choices as far as the style goes that will be applied to the different types of font on your site. So this one is for the site title. On this theme, the title is down here. So if I wanted, I could change the type to be any one of these dozens of different types and choose something simple like Arial, and we can see that changes here. There's a number of options here, and as I scroll through these on the left, we notice that blue boxes start showing up in the main area of my site. Those blue boxes are telling me what I'm about to change. So if I don't know where on my site the headline is, by hovering over this, Weebly is telling me, oh, this is actually where your headline is. So I can click on this, and then I can go ahead, change the font if I want, change the size, the color, a lot of different choices. The last thing that you'll see in this theme tab is theme options. This theme has the option of having a header color, so it's kind of this red overlay, but I can turn that off if I wanted. And just like the color options that we see here, there are different options for different themes. So again, playing around with the themes, getting a feel for what each one has uniquely will be a good way to go. The next tab is the store tab. I'm not all that aware that any of you will be actually using this too much. If you do end up using the store tab, we do have plenty of documentation on how to add products and build a store within your site. We're not going to be covering that during this webinar, but feel free to ask if you're wondering where you can find information like that. You can use this to do fundraisers and all sorts of stuff, but that's as much as we're going to touch on today. And the last tab in the editor here is the settings tab. The settings tab, this is where we can change a site title. So my site is Justin Elementary School. I'll just leave it for now. I can choose to show this title on my site or not by using this here. A favicon, we can make a custom favicon. If you've been browsing the internet, you may notice that when you have a bunch of tabs open, they all have different little logos in the tab. That's what a favicon is. So you are going to be able to upload a custom image to show up in those tabs. Additionally, you're going to be able to set a password where you could protect your entire site or just certain pages of your site. This would be one password, and anybody that had that password would be able to access, but it'll give you the ability to make certain sections of your site that you want to just be internal, and maybe only have employees or certain groups of employees have access. You could use this feature to have password protection. The next thing we see is this group excess pages under more. This does not make a lot of sense yet, but I will go over what this means when we get there. You can create an archive of your site after it's been published. This allows you to make sure that you have a backup of all of your images and what you've done on the site. While you cannot actually re-upload that backup to Weebly, it is very valuable just to make sure that you have kind of a record of what you have on your site, as well as all of that data. Site formatting. If you, for any reason, wanted to change the format, the time format, or the language of your site, you would be able to choose those settings here. The next area we see here in the settings tab is for SEO. This is search engine optimization. Again, this is something that we're not going to explicitly cover in this webinar, but if you go to weebly.com/SEO, we have an incredibly extensive guide to building your site in a way where it is more publicly visible in search engines if that's something that you wanted to achieve. The next option is a membership option. This is taking the idea of password protecting pages and really making it much more powerful. So with this, you can create individual members and individual groups where everybody has their own login and password, and you can use this to really to make it so, I have one group of pages that only one person can see, but another group of pages that only a particular group can see. It's a much more powerful way to protect the content of your site. The last bit of settings that we have are for the blog. And when we start talking about the blog, we'll talk about some of these settings as well. I want to let you know I am seeing some questions coming through. I'm going to do kind of a Q&A at the end of the webinar. Some of these questions I am going to be covering just kind of naturally in the progression of my presentation. And at the end, we will make sure that all of your questions are answered. So just because I'm not answering them now, doesn't mean we won't get to them. And feel free to continue to ask questions as they come up throughout the presentation. So we're going to go back to the Build tab and take a look at how else we can use Weebly to really create content. So with this theme, we have this header area up top. I've got this red overlay over it and a picture that doesn't really match what I'm trying to do here at all, right? This is for a school. So to change the picture, we click into this area and we see that there is a set of options down here. The first thing we can do is edit the background, or we can replace the header layout. Well, let's go ahead and edit the background because I know I don't want this image of just the hands. And we can look at some of the options here. So there's 3 different options for what we can have as the background. An image, just a color, or we can actually use video. Now you can upload your own video through this box here, or you can go ahead and choose from one of the videos that we have previously created. So this is the school. We've got, a whiteboard and a hand marking. That seems like it'll actually work okay. So I just click on the video that I want, click on save. The red overlay is kind of overbearing with this. So I'm going to go into my theme options and actually turn it off. So now it's a little bit more clear. So now we don't actually see the video playing, but that's just because it doesn't do that automatically in the editor. But if I want to click Edit Background, I can now preview what this video is going to look like. So this is a way to really grab the attention of people as they access my site. Another thing that I can do here is change the vertical height of this area. So down here, right above this Edit Background button, there's this little circle. And if I click and hold, I can drag it down to make this area larger or drag it up to make the area smaller. So I think we'll go with something smaller like that. I'll probably delete this image since it's covering the hand. And maybe now we'll drag it a little bit larger. Leave it here, and now we have our title. We can go ahead and adjust the size of this text in two different ways. Remember, we can change it from theme, change fonts, and then headline. Now, when I change it from here, these are global changes. So any headline on my site will be changing to match what I'm making this one here, which is a really powerful way to make wide sweeping changes over your entire website without having to go back to every single page and do that on them. So let's choose, that's not gonna work. I want like a pure white, so I can choose this option here, kind of select anything I want. So we got a pure white now. It's still kind of covering the hand. And so at this point, I can click into the text, and we see that there are additional options for adjusting this text. If I wanted, I could select just a part of it, and I can make it bold. I can select a different part of it, make it italic. If I wanted to make the whole thing underline, I could do that as well. Additionally, you see that I can change the size here. Now keep in mind, if you make changes like this, it's not actually changing our global settings. It's just changing this individual title on this page, this headline. So if I were to go back now and change the global settings, they would no longer adjust this because I have told the system, I want this to look like a very specific way, not how the general settings are making it look. So I'm making this text a bit larger, and then I can make it left aligned, and we can go ahead and preview the video and see how that works. So this is kind of out of the way. The video's over here. That's a good start. So as we look further down the page, let's get out of there. Again, we see our site title here. Now I do have a couple of options. Again, I can turn this whole thing off, and that just makes the entire area go away. I can change it back to text, or I can change it to a logo. So here we see that there's kind of a default logo here, but I can go in and edit. And I can remove the image, and now I can add my own image and just turn it into my logo. So I can pull in an image here. We'll want to make it small. On this theme, the area for my image is only as big as this bar. I can go ahead and save it. We see that it's a little bit cut off. So this logo is not really going to work for my site. So I could just delete that, and it just goes back to text. So again, you're never going to be stuck with these choices that you make. When you delete things, they are deleted permanently. We would have to re-upload, but I can always go back to use text. We see our navigation here. We went over that a little bit, and then we see just a lot of empty space. What we're looking at here are a number of different sections that are on the site. This is a relatively new feature of Weebly, and it allows you to really distinguish different areas of one page on your website. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's make it more clear. So if I click into this area, we see similar options that we saw before. I can edit the background, I can turn it into an image, or I can just go ahead and say we want it to be just a solid color. Now as we scroll down, we see that that color only took up a certain amount of space. this section down here is a separate entity from the one above. So I can go ahead, edit the background. Let's turn this one into an image. So let's just replace the existing image, and then I'll drag something in here. So we've got an image here. Now that it's in place, I can drag it up and down to figure out exactly where I want it to be situated on my page. And we can click on Save. Now with images, there are a few additional options. We see this scrolling effect. So right now it's set to none, but there's also parallax and reveal. So if I have it set to none, we can see what that looks like. So as I'm scrolling through the page, the image just kind of shows up as this background and then disappears as I keep scrolling. But if I were to choose something like a parallax, as I scroll through, we see that the image is stationary behind the area, and the content would scroll over that image. So it really just kind of changes the way that this image behaves on the page. This is a very modern technique for displaying content on a page, and again, a relatively new feature to what we offer. The last option is a reveal option. Now in the editor, reveal doesn't work as well because we want you to be able to see everything. But on your actual website, the way it would work is as you would scroll down, you would hit a certain point, and this would kind of materialize out of just a white space and appear on the page. Personally, I like the parallax effect the best, so we're just going to go ahead and choose that one. So now we've got these two different sections. We see that there are two others that are automatically here. I don't necessarily know that I need to have so many sections on this page, so I can click in and I can just choose to delete the section altogether. Just be cautious when you're deleting sections because any content that you had, like if I have a text element and an image, and I were to go ahead and delete the section, that content on the section would be deleted as well. So this section, the one with the parallax, I really think that it should be probably the first one. So I can move it on this page and I can just move it up. So now my two sections have changed places. And so I think that that's a good start. So let's look at some of these other options that we have here. So I've got this section down here, this big purple one. I can make it a little bit smaller. So I always have the ability to make it a really short one or a really tall one, just depending on how much content I want to put in here. And if we click in, again, we can change all these different options. So let's look at adding some more elements to the page. We've added, title, text, and image. What happens if I want to put something like images next to each other? How do I do that? So I've just put one image element on the page, and I'm going to bring another one in. Now, as I have this image element, notice that there's a blue bar that's kind of bouncing around my screen, depending on where my mouse is. That blue bar is horizontal above this previous image. So if I were to drop it here, that means that I'd be dropping this element above this other element that I already have on the page. I can move elements once they are on the page by just clicking and holding on this rectangle with the 8 dots. I can drag it to the left, and we see that that blue bar is now vertical, and that's telling me that I'm about to drop this element next to the existing element on the page. Now, when I do this, we notice that these elements have each taken up half of the page. So Weebly will automatically create columns where the elements that you have in the same column will take up an equal amount of space. The same thing holds true if I were to add another image in here. Drag it next. So now we have 3 images in this area, even though it's kind of tough to see. And each column is 1/3 of the available space. So if I wanted, I could change it so that one image is going to take up more or less than another, and I can adjust the width of these columns to whatever I want. So we can make it like this, and now let's put some images in here. So I can go ahead and drag an image into this one here, and then on this one, why don't we go ahead and search? So we can search for just school. And we see that there's a number of images that we could add to our site. So if we found something that we wanted to use, let's just go ahead and pick this one, a PE. We can select it. So this image is something that you can use on your site, and all that's going to happen is at the bottom, there's going to be basically a credit to the photographer automatically added to the site. We've got another space for an image over here, so let's go ahead and just drag in a different one. So now we've got our 3 images, and I can change the amount of space that they can take up to determine which images can be larger or smaller than the others. One thing to note about a set of columns is that I can actually move this around the page if I wanted. I don't have to move one element at a time, I can move the entire set. As I hover over these elements, when I get between them, we see this divider line. Now this divider line is what I was using to change the width of these columns by clicking and dragging. But if I click on the divider line, I see that there's this white rectangle with the 8 dots, and I can actually click this and drag the entire column set to a different part of my page. So now I've put them in this other section down below. What about text and images? So let's go ahead, we'll drag another image element onto the page. And then we'll drag a text element onto the page. We'll put it on the left. Excuse me, that was a title. So we'll go ahead and put a text one and delete the title. So I've got some just dummy text that we're going to add in so we can get an idea for what this looks like. And then we can go ahead and we could search for an image. How about we search exam? Oh, let's search test. Some of them don't really make sense why they would be here, but we can go ahead and choose something like this just to get an image. And again, I can change the size of the image in a couple of ways. One is by changing the amount of space that I'm giving it to show up in, by changing the width of its column. And the other way is by hovering over the image, and in the bottom right, we see this little blue square. If I click and drag it in, the image gets smaller. I can also make the image larger. So we'll make the image about this big. We see there's a lot of wasted space between the text here and the image. So I can go ahead and drag this over so the text is taking up a little bit more space. And we'll bring the image like this to make it a bit full. Now for what I'm trying to show you, against this background, it's honestly a little bit hard to see. It's hard to see the text against this image background that has so many different colors. So we're going to move this set of columns down here below the other one just so that we can get an idea of what this looks like. If I wanted, I could create a brand new section. So here in the elements tray, we see the section element. I can drag that onto the page. And now we see we have some options. I can choose a particular layout, or what I want to do is just drag my layout onto here. Now I will go over that layout functionality in just a moment. It's a very powerful tool to use when designing your site. So here we have our dummy text and we have our image. I'm going to put some more text on here just to kind of prove a point. So what we have is 2 columns. One has text, one has the image. It's not bad, but there's all of this wasted space down here. So I could put another image in here, or I could throw a button in here and fill up this space in whatever way I wanted. Maybe there was a call to action. So I can choose the center of the button, and we can add a sign up here. And then I can link this button to a different page of my site. I can also link it to a totally different website if you had some sign up form through a third party, or I can link it to a standard page of my site. So I don't really have like a sign up form. So why don't we create a new page really quick? We'll go ahead, add a standard page. We will call this one sign up form, and go ahead and click done. This is a page that we don't really want to show on our navigation. It's going to be kind of hidden. We want people to get there through the call to action buttons. So I can choose to actually hide this page from navigation so that it doesn't appear in this list. So if we go back to the home page, now we can link our button to our sign up page. And on the live website, this will link when it's clicked on. So we could fill the space by doing things like that, but there's still a bunch of space. And what I would actually prefer is that the image kind of have the text wrap around it. So let's try something. Let's just get rid of the button. We'll just move it up to the top to get it out of the way. So we can take this image, and just like anything, we can always move it around. And that blue bar is going to tell us where we are about to drop it. But when I hover over the text itself while carrying the image, we see that it's not a blue bar, it's actually a blue square. So when I drop this in, we are actually merging these two elements, the image and the text. We are merging them together, allowing for the text to wrap around the image. So I can move this image vertically anywhere I want on the right-hand side or the left-hand side of my text box. So if I wanted it over here, I can drop it here. I can make it a little bit larger. And I can also change some of the options associated with the image. Things like the spacing. There's a lot of spacing above the top, so maybe I want to make the margin a little bit smaller. If I wanted to add a border, we can go to the advanced sections. We can go ahead and just add a border around the image. We can also do captions. So maybe I have a caption that says, click image to sign up. So rather than having the button in here, we can just make it so the image itself links to the standard page of our site that has the sign up form. And it'll work in the exact same manner as the button. So let's go ahead and look at that sign up form page. Right now it's pretty much empty. We can click into this and we see that there are some options. We can edit the background, we can add a layout, or we can move the section. So this add a layout button, we're going to see this choose section that we saw before when we dragged a new section onto the page. So basically, this is a way to allow Weebly to help you design your page. Our kind of pre-built sets of elements. So this one is like title, text, and then a couple of images. This one's an image gallery. This is really simple, just a title and then a slideshow. But what we want on this page is something like a contact form. Now, none of these are actually going to do what we want them to do, but we do have a contact page also. So really quickly, we can go to the contact page, click on this, add a layout, click on contact. And now, just that easily, we have a contact form, a map, which we can change the area of. So I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. and we'll see that the map updates to show my area. Also more options with this. So using that layout option, basically what we do is we put these same elements on the page for you and just help you organize them. But we want to make a sign-up form of some sort. So we'll go back to the Build tab, and the option here that we see is for a contact form. So this is going to be the same type of form that showed up on our contact page, but we can make this pretty much do whatever we want. When I click into the form on the left-hand side, there's a large number of different options, and these options are all different than what we usually see in the Build tab. So we've got a short text box, a large text box, option buttons, a drop-down. So let's say that I wanted to add a drop-down. Again, everything is drag and drop, and the blue line tells me where I'm about to put this. So we will put it beneath the email address. And now I can click on this option and go ahead and change everything about it. So I can change what the title is. So how about choose session, and then option items. We can say the morning session. Maybe this is a sign up form for some type of activity. And this is the noon session. This is the afternoon session. And I could add more if I wanted. And now we can see that this drop down has options that are what I typed in here. I can make this a required part of the form. Anything that has this red asterisk is required. If I turn that off, then it wouldn't be required. I can even have instructions. So please choose the one that works best for you. So a little check mark now appears, and when I hover over the check mark, I see my tooltip that I just created. So it's very easy to do really fancy things on your Weebly website just by checking out some of the options. If I wanted somebody to have to leave their phone number, I could drag the phone number in here. And if I wanted to organize it a little differently, I could also put the phone number over here so it shows up next to name. I can drag this in so those are a little tighter, and I could even put email up here. So again, I can organize this however I want. You're not going to be stuck with how it looks when you first add the contact form to the page. So what happens when somebody fills out this contact form? Two things will happen. The first is that the entry is going to be saved in this space here. Because we don't have any entries, we don't see anything. The other thing that's going to happen is that the submission is going to be emailed to whatever email address or addresses that you put in here. So if you're going to use just a personal address, and you could separate it with a comma, and you could add other addresses. So anytime this is filled out, somebody's going to get an email notification like, hey, your contact form was filled out. And it's also going to be saved within the Weebly editor itself. Let's go back to the Build tab. We'll go to our photo gallery page since there's nothing here. And we can click on the area and choose Add a Layout. Maybe we just choose the gallery, and we'll choose this one. This is a slideshow. I can tell because of these little controls that can move forward or back. So we can select the slideshow layout, and we see that it came with a title. So how about Field Day 2016. Now there are images that came with this, but by clicking in the area and then click Add Edit Images, I can go through and delete all the images that don't pertain to the gallery that I want to create, and then I can just drag in my own images. I don't have images that are specific to Field Day, so I'm just going to drag in the images that I want. Same images that you've already seen, but that's not the point. So now we see our slideshow with our images, and I can see that there are a number of different options. I can change the transition style. So if I don't like how it was sliding, I can make it so that the images change in a mosaic, or I can make them slice. So different options there. I can choose the speed at which this changes, the location of my caption, a number of different things that we can do to really customize this slideshow. Another way to add images to a page is by using the gallery element. So right now we have the slideshow. Why don't we drag a new section onto the page and we will put a gallery in here. So I'm going to do this one from scratch. Again, this one that we did before was the slideshow element, and now we have this gallery element that we will look at down here. So this is just a third way to display images on your site. So we can click in here and we can go ahead and upload our images. And we can see that the gallery has been created. So I have 4 images and we can see that they are in 3 columns. So by default, new galleries will be 3 columns, but I can change this to be up to 6. I can also make it down to 2. So if I like this layout where we have these four images in a square, then I can keep it like that. I can change the spacing so that there's more or less space in between the top of the image and the top of the element, just depending on how I want it to organize my page visually. And we can also add captions. So there's a couple different ways that we can display our caption on Lightbox and partial thumbnails, or Lightbox and full thumbnails. Well, let's see what this looks like. So we'll choose Lightbox and full thumbnails, but nothing actually changed because we haven't created captions. To create a caption, we just need to click on the image itself. We will add a caption. So we'll call this one The Whole World. And we'll call this one Peace in the Classroom. And so we can kind of see, what these will look like in here. Oh, I didn't click save. Done. And Peace in the Classroom, done. So if we look at some of these options on how these captions can display, we see the Lightbox and partial thumbnails. They kind of have this little bit of an overlay at the bottom, and if I make it full thumbnail, it shows in the middle. So these are kind of small and hard to read, and again, to change the fonts on any area of the class, the site, we go to Theme, Change Font, find the font area. So as we scroll through this left, there we go, we see the blue boxes show up, Gallery Captions, and I can go ahead and just make the default size a bit bigger. Let's make it, we'll change the font so I can do something that's bold. So it's a little bit easier to see. And now all of my gallery captions will match this visual. All right, so we are about 45 minutes in at this point. I want to cover one more thing before we get to the Q&A session, and that's the blog. So when we go to the Pages tab, we see our list of pages. If we look at these icons, most of my pages are this normal kind of folded paper icon. This is your standard page. This different one, where it's this kind of quote box, this denotes a blog page. And on this site, it just so happens to be called Updates. I can change the name to whatever I want. I can call it blog. I can call it class updates. And we see that class updates now shows in the navigation. And so now we have our blog area. So what we would be tempted to do is just start dragging elements into this space, but I can't actually drop anything. I see that the only place on this page that I can drop elements is here on the sidebar. So I can do that. I can have an image here, and you can put an image of whoever's blog this belongs to. And for me, I'll just use one of the same 4 images that I've been using. So I can customize the sidebar to display how I want. So Justin's class. This text is a little too big, so I can make it smaller. We can see how all that works. But what about this space here? This is going to be the main part of my blog. How do I put content here? And the answer is down here in the bottom right for new post. So I click on new post, and we see that some content is populated. Post title, so I can call this my first blog post. And then we can drag elements into the space just like we would on any other page. And we'll just put an image in here. So let's say that I just wanted to get started, but I have to run, go do an errand real quick. I want to come back and finish later. I can save this post, and when I do, it saves as a draft. Now in the bottom right, we see a new button that shows drafts. If I click on this, I see my one and only draft, my first blog post. I click into it, and now I can go ahead and make changes. Let's just resave this as a draft, and let's create a new post. So this will be my second blog post. We'll put some text in here. Now this one, let's say that we're done, we're ready to go. There are a few things that you want to know about these options. First of all, you can change this date. So if you want to backdate a post or date one in the future, you could do that through clicking on the date here and then selecting from the calendar. Additionally, there is this post options button here in the bottom left, this big blue button, which gives us some additional options. I can publish it immediately, or I could go ahead and publish it at a scheduled time. I can choose any day that I want. I could say that I want this to go out on November 2nd of 2019, and I could select that date. And let's say we want it to go out at 6:45 a.m. because we know that that's when people are going to be starting to check their emails. So if they're signed up for my blog, they can see that, and it'll be there in the morning. So I have a lot of flexibility with when I want a post to actually show up. If we wanted to do something a little more practical, I could go back to 2016 and have a post that I want to go out to my class on Monday. And I can select Monday from the list. And then I can select schedule. Again, we haven't actually posted a blog post yet, so there's still nothing here. But down in the bottom right, we see a new button is here for our scheduled blog posts. So all of the ones that I have scheduled will show up here. I can delete them if I want it from here, or I can go in and I can make edits. I can make edits up through the time that it's published and even after. So we have drafts, we have scheduled. Let's go ahead and actually do a post. So we'll call this one my third blog post. We'll just put some text in here just so there's something. Go back to post options on the left. We'll publish this one immediately, and we'll look at some of the other options here. So there's options for comments. I can leave comments open, which means that anybody that finds their way to this blog post will be able to comment on it and have that comment immediately show up. The next option is closed, which means that nobody will be able to comment at all. And the third option is to require approval. So this way, when somebody places a comment, you will be notified and you will have to approve that comment before it actually shows up on the blog. This is a best practice for many people to require approval. The next option we see here is for categories. This is a really powerful way to organize your blog. Let's say that you find a great reason to use a blog post for your school to talk about like different classes and activities and sports and whatever. You just want to have it all in one location, and that can be your blog. And then we can organize it with categories. So let's say this is a post about sports, so I just type in sports and click enter, and we've created a new category. So how about school news category, and we can create that. And I can add any number of categories that I want to a post. Let's say that I'm ready to go with this blog post. I click on post, and it's been added to my blog page, but because my website is not live yet, it won't actually show on my live site. So that makes sense. We'll have to publish my site to actually get it to show live. But now we can see that my first post is shown up here in this area. I can see my categories are on the left, and a list of archives has automatically been generated. So this will go month by month. This will show off all the different categories that I have created and really allow for it to be very easy to find content in the site, especially on my blog. That brings up another question. How else could people find content that you have on the site? Let's go back to just the home page. And one of the options here is a search box. So if I wanted, here on my home page, if I wanted to give people the ability to search the site for what they were looking for, I could add a search box onto the site. And now they see something right away. I mean, maybe I want it just to be up in my header. And I can change the placeholder text to say anything that I want. Search school, and that shows up here. So this way, any content that you have on your site that's not on a password protected page will be available through this search functionality, which will allow people to find things that they're looking for much more quickly. So at this point, we're pretty much to the end of the prepared presentation. I am going to mute myself for just a second and get a quick drink of water, start looking through the questions, and then get started with that. But for now, I'm going to turn it back over to Yentl, who has a little bit more information for you.
Thank you, Justin. So I hope you all got a lot out of that. So in case you came in late to the webinar, I wanted to do a quick recap. So we are doing these webinars on Weebly because CPS has recently partnered with Weebly, and that allows all schools to get a pro site at no cost to their school. So your school does not pay anything for the site. So, and a few questions that kind of came towards me were, if you do have an outside vendor currently and you want to get into this platform, which is weebly.cps.edu, so if you're using an educational networks website, etc., you can get off that website and actually go onto this platform. And what you will do is fill out a form that we have created, and I will send the link out to you all in a follow-up email. But you will get a form. You just have to fill out a form that basically says that you want to get into this platform, and we will contact you and go through a step-by-step process to get you over to this new Weebly platform. Another thing is a lot of people are wondering about other contributors to the website. So we do have 3 different types of contributors that you can do to add to this Weebly website. There's a manager or coordinator and a student. The manager has all access to the website, so they can change the themes, they can do anything to the website that they would like. We do request that you have at least 2 manager roles in case somebody is out today or something has to get updated and somebody's not there. You'll always have somebody who can manage that site. The coordinator role is usually considered for teachers, so some websites, we do have it where a teacher has their own page where they put their documents down, their homework, etc. So that teacher will have access to only that page. They won't have access to any other pages in the site. Then we do have a student. So students can edit the page, but they will not be able to publish the page. Students can just make simple edits to it if you would like them to do that. Currently, we are not taking requests for students at the moment. That would be in the near future, but that will be there soon. Also, there are no guidelines when you are building a school website. You may put whatever you want on that school website. We do consider that you put the CPS logo. Most schools put them in the footer of the website, so that would be a great place just to show that you are a Chicago Public School. And I think that's pretty much what I have. So if you do want to get into this platform and actually learn more about this information, I will be sending out a follow-up email that will have a recording of this video, also some links where you can sign up to get into this platform. Once you do sign up, one of the team members on my team will contact you and pretty much go through the process that way we can get that website live. And we'll open for the Q&A and Justin will handle that.
Awesome. So I'm going to go through these questions one by one. The first one is from Steven. What about sub accounts for teachers? I believe that was just answered by Yentl. If you do have any further questions about that, she will be your contact for any account related questions and access questions, things like that. She'll be the one that you want to reach out to, unless she tells you to reach out to somebody else. The next question, how much storage is allotted for each school? The great thing about Weebly is that we're not actually going to limit your total storage at all. You are going to be able to upload videos and pictures and have a however many page site, couple hundred, and you're not going to ever run into a wall. The way we do this is just how we set up our database and servers, where it makes it effective for us to provide such freedom to you, so you won't have to worry about whether you're adding too much. The one thing that I would caution is you have to think about when people are loading up your website on their phone, or if they just have a bad internet connection. There is still, while internet speed is pretty fast these days, you still have to consider just how much data you're putting on each page of your site. So I've got my header section, this section here, a third and a fourth. That's not too much. It's not too bad. But I've definitely seen sites where this scroll bar over here is about the size of my mouse cursor, meaning that this page is just monstrously long. And there's two reasons not to do that. One, it's really overwhelming for people to show up at a page that is a mile long, because you don't really know if it's worth it to go through the whole page, because you don't know if you'll find what you're even looking for. And the other thing is that it takes a while for that page to load. So definitely what I would suggest is, while we don't stop you from having an overall large amount of content on your site, I would just be conscious of how much you're putting on each page. So let's say we had maybe a course or something that we wanted to put up on the site, and if we were to put it all up on one page, it would be a mile long. So the concept would be to break that course up into multiple pages. So for example, we can create a new standard page and we can call this just course. Okay, and then we see we can move it up on the navigation so that it shows up here. Now, this is something that we're seeing now, is this more dropdown. Basically, this is automatically created when I have too many items to fit on my navigation row. This is a setting that we saw in the settings tab. Group excess pages under more. If I turn that off, we can go back and see what this looks like. Basically, the navigation bar just got taller, which is fine. But if you have 20 different things on your navigation and this bar is pretty tall, that's just another thing that is not really clean about the site. And I would suggest doing it a different way. So what I would suggest is making pages sub-pages of others. For example, if we wanted to take our contact and make it a sub-page of home, we click and drag on it here, and again, I can move it wherever I want. But if I get under home and then drag it to the right, we see that it indents itself under home. And so now, when we go back to the home page, we're back up to just one row, and when I hover over home, we see that contact now shows up here. So I would do the same thing if you have a course and you need multiple pages. So we could just call this one course page 2. And we'll drag it up and over. We'll just do another one real quick. Course page 3. And now when we go to the course, we see that there are other pages underneath of it. Another option is you can do something similar to what we did on the home page, where we are just linking to the other pages. So you could have, a bunch of text, and at the bottom you could just say go to next page, and then you could link it to the course 2 page. So that was a super long answer to the question of how much storage do I get, but I think I was able to cover a few other important points when you're thinking about how to build your site. The next question is, can we make a custom theme? Yes, you absolutely could. So if you click on theme, and then at the very bottom, we see edit HTML and CSS. So this is what a theme is. It's a bunch of code that we're definitely not going to cover in this webinar, but you can see all of the different things that go into making this theme work the way that it does. So what does all of this mean, and how could you edit it or build your own? If you click on docs up here, it's going to take you to our code editor wiki, which will give you a bunch of information on how our themes are built, the logistics of it, and how you would want to build your own. So that's something that you can absolutely look into. Daniela asks, does Weebly provide a translated text or tab that can switch language from English to Spanish or Spanish to English? There is not a native functionality in our Weebly site that allows you to do that, to where you can have a page and then have it automatically translated. But you could do this in a couple of different ways. One way is just to have a browser will automatically translate text. So when I go to a website that's in Spanish, my browser recognizes that it's in Spanish and that I don't typically look at websites in Spanish, and asks me if I want to translate it. So there's going to be kind of just a default option for anybody in that situation. But certainly you may want to have that kind of freedom to build your site like that. So your best option will basically be to duplicate pages, which is not a great option, but it will be your best. So you have your home page. I can go into the Pages tab, and I can click on Copy. And then I could bring this one underneath the home page, and then we'll just hide it from navigation, and we'll call this one Home in Spanish. And then on this page, you could translate this text. Another option, and we would have to confirm with Yentl, but the option would be to copy your site as a whole and just have a totally second site that would be the translated version of your site. This would basically double your work, because anytime that you made a change to one site, you would have to go into the other one and make a change of it as well. So I unfortunately can't give you a great yes, for that answer. But
So a good thing that I have recently seen in Google, if you just Google it, there's a translator where you just have to copy the code and drag the embed code into your website. And there'll be a translator where it's a drop-down menu with a bunch of languages, and you can just click on it.
Perfect. Now, so she mentioned embed code, which is not something that we have covered. So really quickly, I'm going to cover that for you. So what embed code is it's another element just like any other, and you can drag it onto the page. And then you click into it and you can type your code. Well, that's pretty daunting. Even I don't know how to just write some like fantastic script of code to do all sorts of cool stuff. But this is still a very useful thing, even if you don't know how to write code. And we can prove it using something like YouTube. So let's go to youtube.com/Weebly. Feel free to go here if you want to look at a number of videos that we have covering all aspects of our software. So let's just go ahead. We'll open this first one up. Now in YouTube, they give you the ability to share the video. So if we click on share, we see some options. I can grab a link. I can share it to all these different places. But what we care about right now is this embed option. So YouTube provides us with a piece of code, and I don't need to know anything about it. If I wanted to adjust the height and everything, YouTube allows me to do that all down here. And then the code changes to match the buttons that I click. So it makes it very easy. All I need to do is then copy the code. We go back to the editor. I paste the code, click off to the side, and I have successfully embedded code into my Weebly website. So you will do something similar with what she was talking about with that translate tool from Google. Sounds like something I should look up. Sorry, I didn't have that answer. And there's many, many other ways to use embed code. Like if your school has some sort of maybe an Instagram, I don't know if you would, and you can get code from Instagram to share your photos automatically to your website when you have them on there. So a lot of useful scenarios where this embed code element is really easy to use and very valuable for your site. The next question, what was the practical purpose of archiving your site? Really for me is to make sure that I have a record of all of the images and the videos, everything that I have uploaded to my site. So it's a way for me to make sure that, if I need to, if I accidentally were to delete this section and I lost those images, if I had an archive, I could just go back and grab those images and re-upload. Brings up an important point. Weebly does not have an undo button. So you just want to be cautious, especially when deleting things that you actually want to delete them. The next question, are there specific video formats that need to be uploaded, like .mov, etc.? So there's two different sections that you would upload a video. So we have our HD video element. We drag that onto the page. Click to upload. And our video player accepts .mov, .mp4, .mpeg. So there's a number of different formats, .avi. The best practice is to use an MP4 file with MPEG-4 encoding. So it's just if you don't know what that means, then you're probably going to be good with any file, but the best practice is to use an MP4. Is there a way to make all sections the same height? There is not going to be a button that I can click to make it so that every section on my page ends up being the same height. Let's just go to a page that I know doesn't have any content on it, and we will start just adding some sections here. Now, as they get added in, they're all the same height, but that would change as I start adding content. The one way you can kind of control the height is as I hover over the bottom of this section and start dragging this, I can see how tall the section is based on that number that keeps changing. So if I wanted everything to be the same height, then I would just want to make sure I chose a number. So we just chose 500. And then I'd go through and I'd make each of my sections that height. There's not a way to just en masse change all the sections of your page to be the same height, but this is pretty easy to do. Next question: is there a way that that we can prevent the visitors to the site from downloading images? I do not want the students to download images and upload them on social media. One thing to consider about the internet is anything that you put on the internet, you really need to feel comfortable with that being seen by pretty much anybody. I mean, that's just kind of the general rule of thumb. You know, a lot of that comes down to trust. If you had password protected pages, then that content can only be visible to people who have that password. But, you know, then they could go and right click the images and save them. So the only thing that you can do to make it harder for people to actually download your videos is to try to disable right click on your site. So if you were to go to Google and you were to Google search disable right click, you're going to find a number of different options for code that you can embed into your website. So you would place that code on your website and it would make it so that nobody could, if somebody were to right click, this whole thing wouldn't show up for them. So they couldn't just right click and save the image as. That's really the only way that you can protect your images from being taken from the site. But even then, if somebody were to have just a little bit more knowledge of how a web page works, like for example, we'll go to one of my test sites. So I have right click on right now. Obviously, I haven't turned it off. So somebody could really easily go to this image and then just save the image as, and now boom, they have the image on their computer. If I were to disable right click, they couldn't do that. But if they were to just go into their settings and know how to look up the source of your page, then they would be able to find the image in here in the code, and there would be nothing that you could do about actually stopping that from happening. The only way that you could kind of fully protect images would be to put them in a Flash format, and then they couldn't be downloaded from the site. A Flash video would protect it from being grabbed from the code. But then there's just the option, like I'm on a Mac, so really easily I can take a screenshot. So I could just take a screenshot of your image to then have it on my computer and share it. So all of that is to say, there are steps that you can take, but there's really no foolproof way to protect what you put up on your site from being shared. The best thing to do would be to, if it was something that you only wanted certain people to see, is to password protect the page, probably using the membership feature, and then you wouldn't have to worry about anybody seeing it that you wouldn't want to unless those people shared it. So again, kind of a long-winded answer, but hopefully you got some value out of that. The next question, let's see. Are we able to edit the website off campus? For example, in case of a snow day, are you able to put an announcement on the page from home? Unless there are special restrictions that are put in place by your admin, you can edit your Weebly website from anywhere in the world. You'll be able to log in and just use your email address and password at the correct portal, and you'll be able to edit your site. Now that is unless there's some special restriction that CPS has put on, which I'm not aware of.
Yeah, you can edit it anytime you like.
Perfect. Thank you. The next question, is the website viewable in different platforms such as iPads and smartphones? Absolutely. Now, all of these themes that we have are what is known as responsive themes. So what that means is that these themes actually adjust themselves depending on the width of your browser. So if I were to go here and just start dragging this in, let's look at the content down here. So as I start dragging it in, we notice that the words start to just change themselves. The images are going to start to reorder. And so basically you can get an idea of what your site is going to look like on mobile just by dragging in on your browser and making it more tight. Another way is just by looking here, click on this icon, click on mobile, and we can see what it's going to look like. We can see that the gallery stacks. This image shows up here, the button down here. So everything just kind of reorganizes itself depending on the width of the screen where the website is being loaded. And there's nothing special that you have to do to make that happen. So it's a responsive themes make it really powerful to have your website be great looking on any sort of device. Can you crop images? Yes, so if we go in here, let's just take this image here. I can go ahead and click on edit image, and I see some additional options here. I can rotate it if I want it, kind of however I want. So let's say I wanted to do something like that, and then I wanted to crop the image, so I can use this, move this around, and crop it to be whatever I would like. Click OK, click on save, and now I have an image that looks different from the way it was before. So, is this video being recorded where teachers can have access in the future? Yes, I am recording the video. I will make sure that Yentl gets a copy of it, and then you'll have to ask her where you will be able to find that. But I did record this so that you had this to reference in the future. And again, there's a lot of information that you will be able to get just from the Weebly YouTube channel. A lot of different things that you're going to be able to find on the types of just different activities that you can do within Weebly when you have any questions. Let's see. One question that came through, when we build using Weebly for CPS, do we have to create the site with the .weebly.com extension, or can it be moved to a .cps.edu extension? I'm not sure if you touched on that, Yentl, but that's a question for you if you wanted to jump in.
Yeah, so I haven't touched on that yet. So when you actually have the site done in Weebly, we will go through a process that actually removes your domain. If you have a domain currently to a site, so let's say it's justin.cps.edu on an educational network site, we'll go through the process with you. That way you can get the site, get the URL off that site, and then we'll put it into this Weebly platform. So no, you will not have the Weebly.com. It won't be into your URL at all.
Perfect. All right. So there's a question about will there be some sort of workbook to navigate through setting up anything? Will there be a workbook available? The best answer that I have for you is to go to HC, which stands for Help Center, hc.weebly.com, and here we have guides for getting started. So here, common questions on the left, and these are written out. And have answers to a lot of questions. We could also just search in here how to upload, why don't we do video, upload HD videos. And so now we see kind of a step-by-step guide, words and images to teach you how to do that. So again, this is at HC, help hc.weebly.com. And this will be a great resource for you with any questions that you have in this format. I'm just going through. We have a lot of people that are definitely interested in the recording. Again, that we have recorded it, and so they'll. I'm sure the Yentl will let you know how to view that.
Yes, I will send out the follow-up email that will have the recording in there for you.
Perfect. So I think the last question, I don't think I missed anything. And the last question that I see is there a way to password protect certain content or tabs? So the answer is going to be that you're going to want to protect certain pages. So let's say, for example, that I had a blog page on my school website that was for teacher, or how about educator news. Okay, this is a page that is going to be hidden from navigation. I don't want just anybody to know where it is, but I do want my teachers to find it and be able to view it. But I want to set the visibility to something other than public. So they'll have to have the link to get here, but once they get here, I'm going to want them to use a password. And so, and I covered this at the beginning, but there are two options. You can use what's called a site password, which is basically one password for everybody. Everybody uses the same password to get into the page. The other option is to use membership or groups. So to set up members or groups, you do this in the settings tab and then members. And we can go ahead and add a member. I can email this person an invitation to log in. And then I can select the pages that I want this person to be able to view. I only see one page on this list because there is only one page that I have chosen to be password protected, and that's this educator news page. But when I go in here and look at the visibility, now I see that this person has access to this page. Now, additionally, if I had people broken up into different groups, so let's say that I had one group for students, we'll create the group, and then one group was for educators, and we'll add the group. So at this point, I could go ahead and edit this member, and I could put this member in the educators group. Click OK, click Save. And then when we go back to the Pages tab, I can select the groups and just choose educators. So any educator that's a part of this educator group in my members settings will now be able to log in to this particular page. So you can really make this very granular, where you can make it so there's a page that only 3 specific people have access to. So if you wanted to share something about a project and you didn't want to share it through email, you could throw your information up just on a page in the site, make it hidden from the navigation, make it password protected with members, and then only certain people would be able to log into it. So it detects which member is looking at the page so I can't show you on this site just because it's not published, but when you go to the live website and you try to access a page that's password protected, you're prompted to log in. And so if I were to log in with an email address that is not part of this group and is not this one, this was a different one, then the page would tell me, I'm sorry, you don't actually have the permissions to view this page. So it recognizes who can access the page based on what email address they're using to log in. Nathan asks, does membership allow members to edit? If not, how do you add additional website administrators? No, membership does not give people the ability to edit. It is solely to allow access to view the page. For questions about administrators, that's something that Yentl will control.
Yes, so in that follow-up email, like I said, you will fill out a form that you request the website in the weebly.cps.edu, and there'll also be a link to a form where you can add contributors to it as well. So both of those will be in that email.
Awesome. So that brings us to the end of my list of questions. I thank everybody for staying with us. This was a nice lengthy webinar, but I hope you got a lot of value out of it. Any further questions? If you ask in the next 30 seconds, I will answer. But if you don't get a chance to, then feel free to ask Yentl, and she'll get in touch with us if she can't find the answer. And I guess that's it. Do you want to close?
Yes. So thank you, Justin. I really do appreciate it. I hope you all learned a lot from this webinar. I will also be sending you all best practice resources to build a website in Weebly. And then if you do need to contact me and have any questions about anything, please contact schoolwebsites@cps.edu. That's websites with an S. And I'll be able to contact you directly in email. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you all want to be a part of this platform and don't pay anything for your website, I will send out a form to you all and just sign up for it, and then you will be getting contacted back for it. Other than that, thank you, Justin. I really do appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And thanks to everybody who is here. And I hope you really enjoy using the software and have a great rest of your week.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.